Hello and welcome to I Am with Eric Faria. I'm your host, and today I have with me Kathy McShane. She's the CEO and founder of Ladies Launch Club and also the author of The Survivor's Guide for Female Entrepreneurs. And we're going to talk all about it today. So thank you for being here, Kathy.
It's my pleasure.
I appreciate it. And I want to start by asking you a simple question, I believe, for you. So what actually led you to work with female entrepreneurs?
Well, I have a long history in the workplace, and when I started in the corporate world, I mentored women there. And then when I started my agency, I mentored women there. And it was just a natural progression because I was always mentoring women. And I actually took a class, and I loved the methodology, and I loved the fact that it was helping women. So here I am.
And how long have you been doing this?
I've been doing this for about 10 years.
Wow, wow. And what is the age of the women who are usually the ones that you work with?
They are really, it's a broad range, and I have women who are 23, 24 years old, and then I have what we call shepreneurs, who are women over 55 years old who start a business.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think is the difference between the 20-somethings and the shepreneurs who are older?
I believe the shepreneurs are a little bit more pragmatic. However, that's good news. The bad news is they're set in their ways. The younger, the millennials, tend to be very excited. They think life is totally great and are somewhat less pragmatic. And I find the younger people haven't spent time in the corporate world where they really do learn a lot of discipline, whereas the shepreneurs have usually spent time there.
I see, I see. So what is the major thing that you would like female entrepreneurs to know, or would-be female entrepreneurs to know?
Just one thing?
Well, I guess the most important,
Then if it's the most important thing, female entrepreneurs have to realize that there are people out there, number one, who want to work with them, and number two, who really do want to motivate them, and number three, hold them accountable. And many women try to do it all on their own, and that's a big mistake. So the message is go out there and find others to work with.
I see. And why do you think it's so hard for women to ask for support?
Because that's the way they're conditioned. And they really feel they can do it all. They think that they're weak if they have to ask for help. And they just are, it's very difficult for them to ask for anything. And I believe, as I said, it's conditioning, and it's really, they don't want to appear weak or not smart.
Not smart. Wow.
Yeah.
I never thought of it that way, actually. So for women, what you're saying is that they would feel that they are less smart if they ask for help than a man.
Absolutely. There's no question about that. Absolutely.
That's interesting. So how do we start to break that cycle or that type of mentality in women?
Well, we have to start with little girls.
Okay.
And when I use the word girl, it usually means a little girl. And what we have found is little girls, when they're 5 years old, if you show them pictures of men and women, and you ask who's the smartest, they often pick the man. When they turn 6, you ask them the same question, they will say the woman. When they're 6, they start to pick the man.
So that young, they revert from the female figure to the male figure.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And you see that regardless of what their relationship is with their dad, or it just is the way it is. So to me, the real way to do this is to start it at home, because if we treat girls differently and our expectations of girls is more rigorous, then I believe that will. And the third element is, we have to really make them feel that it's okay to be successful. It's okay to take risks. It's okay to be the leader, and that starts very early.
I see. And when you wrote the Survivor's Guide for Female Entrepreneurs, What was the main idea that you wanted to get across in the book?
The book was really written so that women could see the way they sabotage themselves. Because we know that often we feel like we're the only person doing it. And then all of a sudden, when you read about it, you say to yourself, oh my heavens, I do that too, or I do that too. So my feeling was, and I really do believe, when you point it out, they become more aware of it. And then when they're more aware of it, they're willing to do something about it. When it just kind of gets hidden in their DNA, it's hard to make changes. But when they read it or see it, it's very different.
I see. So, since you've mentored, I've seen on your website, over 1,000 women, correct?
Yep.
Who was the mentor in your life? Or did you have any mentors in your life?
It's an interesting question. I've never been asked that question before. No, I did not have any mentors in my life. I was an immigrant. I came to this country. My parents had to work 3 jobs, and there were 3 of us, 3 girls, and we just had to find our way. So I really feel that I'm a street fighter. So I don't believe I had mentors, which is unfortunate.
But did you have anybody that you looked up to, even your parents, or the fact that, you know, you migrated to the United States, as an example or something to be admired or to be emulated?
I would say that in my family, the mothers were the leaders,
Right.
and they were the most influential. So the person who was extremely influential to me was my grandmother, my mother's mother. And this woman had 10 children, and she worked until full-time until she was 83 years old.
Wow.
And she was the person that we would all go to when we needed advice, and she was pretty good at it. And then when she passed, it automatically passed to my mother, and my mother's passed, and I think it's automatically switched to me now.
I see. So it's like 3
Yeah.
generations of powerful
The women, right?
women. Yes. Amazing, amazing. And if there is one thing that is common to all the women that you've mentored, is there one thing that you see that you have seen?
I've seen a lot of things, which is really what the book, and I describe the things that I've seen. I believe if you were to challenge me and ask me, what is that one thing? I believe it's a lack of self-confidence. And, you know, I have women who come to me who were executive VPs at Citibank or HBO.
Really? And they still lack the confidence?
They do. When they transfer into an area that they're not used to, they are not comfortable with it. Because we all know that change is difficult, even if it's good change.
Right.
So these women who have had people making their hairdressing appointments are all by themselves now. And and again, that's a generalization. That's not everyone. But I see that a lot.
I see. Well, thank you, and we will be right back after this break. Welcome back. I'm Eric Faria. This is I Am, and I'm here today with Kathy McShane, who is the CEO and founder of Ladies Launch Club, and she also has a book called The Survivor's Guide for Female Entrepreneurs. So we were talking about women and the lack of self-confidence, right? And I wanted to ask you, what is then the main difference when a woman starts a business and when a man starts a business?
The major difference is that women won't talk about those things that they do well. And their mindset is that they feel that they're bragging. And my position is, if you don't tell people what you're good at, how can people hire you to do what you're good at? Which seems very obvious, but women are just extremely uncomfortable with it. The other big difference is asking for the order. Women don't like to ask for the order, where men are like, you know, that's what I'm in here for, to get that order. And again, we're talking generalizations, but women don't want to ask. And what I say to women is, number one, people want to know that you want to do business with them. And if you don't ask for the order, what are you doing there? You know, you're wasting your time. The other thing that's interesting to me is Men and women, when they start and run a company, do it very differently. To women, it's almost an ecosystem, so everything has to play. And women are extremely sensitive to their staff and people around them. And it becomes a little bit like a mini family. And women also are much more inclined to give back to society from their company.
So there's like that communal feel.
Yeah. So those are the three. There are a few others, but those are the three biggies.
And how do you think that women entrepreneurs impact positively the communities around them?
Oh, in any number of ways. The easy way is to write a check. However, they often will have their staff or their people go and volunteer in a hospital, or volunteer in a nursery, or volunteer for the Red Cross. So there's a lot of that. They being small companies, female entrepreneurs, really want to sponsor things that are happening. So if there's a run for cancer research or Alzheimer's, they want to be a part of that. And they also tend to hire locally in terms of vendors. They really do try to keep it in the family, as it were.
Oh, wow.
And even today with the internet, if it's something that requires somebody local, or that doesn't require internet, they're going to hire somebody local.
Oh, so it's much more, I guess, community focused in that sense.
Yep.
Like
Totally.
Kind of like a grassroots.
Yeah, I see it a little bit more like an ecosystem.
Ecosystem.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Because men also think that if you fire somebody, you're taking a piece of the ecosystem away. Women think the ecosystem will fall apart. Men are like, get rid of her, get rid of him, they're not working out for me. And
Sure.
you know what, the ecosystem doesn't really fall apart. So that's a big deal too.
I see. And with the women that you've worked and that you mentioned in the book, what do you think was the one thing that once they were able to gain that self-confidence that made the difference for them to actually make the leap from, wanting to have a business to actually having one?
Couple of things. We run something called an incubator program. And that is a program geared towards women who have an idea, but they don't know what to do with it. And 50% of the women that go through that do not do their idea. The other 50% are so committed because everybody in the group really supports them and challenges them and holds them accountable. So once they actually launch, then they've recognized the fact that they need a support group. And then normally, or many of them go into what we call a mastermind group, which is really about ideation and about accountability.
Wow.
So they really do, it's an aha moment when they recognize that. And the other thing is women kind of get a rap that we don't work well together. And sure, there is some like that. But generally, they work pretty well together.
They do, right?
They do, yeah.
It's been my experience that women work very well together, or maybe, it's my perception. I was raised by a single mother, so perhaps I have that filter, but I've always had that impression that they worked well together.
Well, thank you, because not very many people do. Yeah, but many of them do. They really do. So that's the turning point, when they really recognize, yes, I have a good idea, and they refine it through incubator, and I need people to work with me.
Right. So you mentioned the mastermind. So what is the importance of having a support system of other female entrepreneurs and other like-minded women in actually, going through to the finish line and getting that project done?
To me, there are two things that are really magical almost about a mastermind. The first is women all of a sudden have other women to talk to. And what I do is I pair women up. So they'll have a partner, and the other one, they'll all have partners who they hold each other accountable for. And what normally happens is woman A comes from a whole different perspective than woman B. So when they look at situations, when they look at challenges, the A is like, I don't get that. So she has a clearer idea, so she can share that with B. And so with B, it's the same thing. So that and accountability. Everybody who goes through my mastermind has homework.
Yeah.
And it's always about moving them to the next step in their business. And I don't think I've ever, in 10 years, had anybody come to the next mastermind who has not completed that. So it's that accountability, it's the motivation, it's a little bit clarity in terms of thinking.
Wow, that is fantastic.
It
And
is.
you said about accountability, and I remember when I was going through my own coaching training program that we had all of those things to do, all of those homeworks and assignments.
That's right.
And it was like, we actually need to do this as a group, right?
Yeah.
So that really creates a powerful dynamic, I believe, in my
Absolutely. And
point of
motivator.
view.
It
And
makes-
motivator,
yeah,
yes.
Because they don't want. And the other thing is they're on the phone or they meet for coffee, you know, between the monthly meetings. So they're accountable to each other.
Right. So good, so good. So before we go for this segment, what is the main thing that you believe successful women have in common and successful business women have in common?
They don't personalize their business. They don't think of their business as one of their children. They're not what I describe as thin-skinned. You just really have to be able to take those knocks because you're definitely going to get them. I find that they have to be persistent and they have to be focused. However, persistence is the good news and the bad news because at some point you have to say this is not working and be able to walk away from it.
So focus and persistence, those are the two main qualities.
Right, and they don't personalize their business. They recognize the difference between themselves and their business.
Very important.
Critical.
Yes. So we will be right back with Kathy McShane. Hello, I'm Eric Faria, and this is I Am. Thank you for watching. I'm here today with Kathy McShane, who is the CEO and founder of Ladies Launch Club. So we were just talking before the break about a public speaking that you did at the New York Public Library.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that experience?
Oh, the experience was absolutely phenomenal. And I do a lot of public speaking, but there was something just very special to be invited to speak there. The ambiance, the people were totally different from Connecticut, where I live and work. And the questions they asked were totally different, which I love. And just a really, really, really mixed group of people. And just, they have a little bit of an attitude, and I don't mean that negatively
No, I
at
get
all.
it.
They just are like, you know, they don't care, they ask anything, and that's good. I think we all need to have those challenges.
That's good. So what are the differences that you see regionally, even though it's not that far away from Connecticut to New York City, but what do you see from the places that you travel to and you talk to?
Well, the thing that strikes me most is the difference between Westchester and Fairfield County, because that to me is just really next door. And what I find about Connecticut women is I believe they have this image of themselves of being sweet and good looking, and they don't want to challenge anything. Then we come to Westchester. And the women are just fabulous because they have what I call bravado, and they will challenge everything that we talk about. And they have a totally different mindset. I happen to love it. I've done work in California. That's a whole different.
I can only
you know,
imagine.
So there are definitely regional differences. And I often wonder, as an immigrant, why does somebody who from Brooklyn speak differently than I do from Fairfield County? How does that happen?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Because it's relatively close.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And even if it's not, why, you know, why, we're all the same country.
It's true, it's
Right?
true. I mean, as an immigrant myself, I can attest to that from every place that I go to, even I was in New Jersey 2 weeks ago, and completely different
Yeah, I
accent.
know.
And my own accent, and I hear it all the time. And people are like, I don't hear it as often, but I do.
Yeah, I do
And it's-
too.
yeah.
I'm very sensitive to it. I love it, but I'm sensitive to it.
Okay. So earlier we were talking about the women who are entrepreneurs, who are in their 50s, and you call them shepreneurs.
I do.
Right?
Yes.
So what is the characteristic of a shepreneur? What would you define as a shepreneur?
Generally, they're women who are in big transition. And that could be a divorce. It could be she's an empty nester, or her spouse.
So the kids have left the home,
empty,
have gone to college. And,
right.
Yeah.
So, and she's left her big job to take care of these kids. Her spouse may have passed on, or they have been divorced. So they come into the marketplace with a little bit of a different point of view, and that is fear.
Oh, really?
They're really fearful, and they're fearful because of that change. People don't like change.
The life transitions.
It's a big transition for them, and they worry about their skill set. They worry about, if I'm over 50, am I aged out? They worry about, where am I going to get people to work for me or with me? They worry about everything. And however, when they get over that hump, they're amazing because they are mature. They have been there. They have done so much. And I think many of them who have been mothers are just, they want to coddle everybody in the world, which we kind of ask them not to do quite so much. Right. But to me, it's very brave for a woman who's 50, 55 to just say, you know what, I'm going to start a business. And I have a number of them who have extremely successful businesses. I mean, we're talking about $7 million businesses.
Wow.
So not all of them, obviously, but they come in, and those who really want to do it, and they'll figure out how to do it.
Can you, without naming any names, can you say some of the businesses that these women have started?
We have a number of people who manufacture. I mean, they don't physically, but they'll do handbags, and that one is a $7 million company.
Wow.
And she actually distributes through HSN and QVC.
So
and
big companies.
Wow. They're huge volume.
Huge.
However, I do also one-on-one coaching, and I suggested to her that she start to look at Amazon. Who owns the world right now? Amazon.
Yeah.
Right?
Online, yeah.
So we always have to be thinking about what's happening next and try to at least keep up with it.
That's fantastic.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So what would you say to a woman who is in her 50s, who has an idea, who perhaps has had an idea for decades?
Often, yeah.
Yeah, often, right? And didn't act on it. What would you say to that woman would be the first step?
The first step is to really understand who your target market is. And how that person walks, how they talk, what's their DNA, what are their values? Because people actually buy emotions. They really don't buy products or services. So, and I put them through this, who is the target market? What is your positioning? How are you different than any other of the thousands of handbags out there? How are you going to price? And we have a checklist. And if they don't go through that, it's going to be difficult for them. And what happens is, to many, when you put them through the exercise, all of a sudden they love it. They're like, oh my God, I was so afraid of that exercise. And it takes thinking. It takes really, really thought. And I frankly pretty much challenge them because that's what I'm there for.
Okay. So in the book, as I was reading it, you also mentioned about the female entrepreneurs who have that fear, right? And how to overcome that. So could you talk a little bit more about, because I feel that fear is such a human emotion. It's
Absolutely.
So common and everybody has it. Doesn't matter how old, how young you are.
Right.
So could you talk a little bit more about how to overcome that fear?
I'm going to go back to something that I had said earlier, and that is to be with a group of people who are going to challenge you. However, I try to really communicate to these women that what's the worst thing that can happen? Number one. And number two, we often think of things that don't work the way we want them to as failures. They're really not. We've learned something. Everybody learns something.
There's always a lesson.
That's right. And I also think often, and I'm not a Pollyanna at all. I'm sure you can tell that. But I feel that when things happen, there's a reason for it. And often something much more wonderful comes along. So I really work with them in terms of getting that mindset about what is really the worst thing that can happen. And they don't want to look dopey. They just don't want to look dopey, but you're not looking dopey. So we work really to get over that fear. And I will tell you, in a group of women, they're going to get over that fear pretty quickly because they're going to challenge each other.
I believe you,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And so I guess the message is you can't get to courage without walking through fear.
That's right. That's right.
Well, thank you very much, Kathy,
you.
for being here today.
It's my pleasure.
It's my pleasure to have you here. Once again, the book is The Survivor's Guide for Female Entrepreneurs, and it's my pleasure to have Kathy here today. And I'm going to put her information, her social media, so you can follow her, you can get in touch with her. And thank you once again.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I'm Eric Faria, and thank you for watching I Am. I will be back next week, and you can follow me on social media at I Am Eric Faria. Thank you, and I'll see you later.